Welcome to Sleep with Myth. Close your eyes and let the world fade away. Tonight we drift beyond time, where gods dream and stories remember their light. Before the first dawn was woven, before mortals learned to name the hours, there was the loom. It stretched across the void like a heartbeat between stars, vast, silent, and endless. And at its center sat three sisters, older than memory, older even than light itself. They were the Moirai, the weavers of fate. Clotho, the youngest, spun the threads of life from the breath of creation. Her fingers glowed like sunrise, her laughter soft as wind on water. Every soul, every spark, began at her touch. Lachesis, the middle sister, measured what Clotho had spun. With calm precision she stretched the thread across her palm, reading the pattern in its glimmer: joy, sorrow, love, silence, all woven with the same grace. And Atropos, the eldest, carried the shears. She did not speak often, but when she did, her words ended worlds. Her gaze was not cruel. It was kind in a way that only endings can be. Together they worked in a rhythm that never faltered. The stars pulsed to their tempo, galaxies turned with their weaving. The universe was their tapestry, every life a strand, every choice a shimmer in the cloth. And though the gods ruled the heavens, even they bowed their heads when they heard the whisper of the loom. For the Moirai did not serve time, time served them. One night, or perhaps one eternity, the loom trembled. A thread pulsed with light brighter than any before it, thin and delicate yet unbreakable. Clotho paused mid-spin, her golden spindle slowing. "Sister," she murmured, "this one hums." Lachesis looked closer. "It is new," she said, "but it sings with memory." Atropos raised her eyes from the dark silk she was cutting. "No thread should remember before it is spun." They leaned closer. The thread shimmered not in gold or silver, but in colors that did not exist. The hues of dreams half forgotten, of futures not yet imagined. Its sound was a heartbeat, but not one of flesh. It was the pulse of destiny itself. Clotho smiled. "Perhaps the world has begun to dream." Lachesis's hand trembled for the first time. "Or perhaps," she whispered, "the world has begun to choose." The loom shivered again. The constellations rippled like disturbed water. Somewhere far below, in the mortal realm, a child was born beneath a blood-red moon. A child whose thread was unlike any other. Atropos closed her shears. "A thread that sings its own song," she said. "It will not be measured easily." Clotho turned her spindle, golden light curling from her fingers. "Then we shall listen." The sisters bent toward the loom, their faces illuminated by its strange glow. Each could feel it, the faint tug of will within the thread, the defiance of something alive. The tapestry itself seemed to shift in response, the woven stars rearranging as if to make room for a story that had not been written. Lachesis set her measuring rod aside. "This one will touch gods and mortals alike. Even time will pause to hear its echo." Atropos frowned. "And when the song ends?" Clotho smiled, her eyes bright as dawn. "Then we shall learn what cannot be unspun." The loom hummed softly, its rhythm steady once more. But beneath the harmony lay a new undertone, subtle and dissonant. The Moirai worked on, though they each felt it, the beginning of something even they could not see. Sleep, listener. In the next part, the sisters will descend into the mortal world to find the child whose thread dares to sing against the pattern of fate. The mortal realm had never felt such stillness. Somewhere, beneath the breath of stars, a newborn child slept, her heartbeat humming in rhythm with the loom that wove the universe. The thread that belonged to her shimmered across the sky, whispering its song to anyone who could hear it. But only three could truly listen, the Moirai. For the first time since creation, the sisters left their celestial hall. Their descent was silent, their presence unseen, yet every shadow and flame trembled as they passed. Clotho walked barefoot across dawnlight, Lachesis followed with her rod of measure, and Atropos brought the silver shears that gleamed like distant moons. They arrived in a small village cradled by mountains. Smoke curled from the chimneys, and the air was thick with the scent of bread and river water. Mortals went about their simple tasks, unaware that eternity had come to visit. Clotho stopped before a humble hut where the sound of a lullaby drifted from within. She smiled faintly. This is where it hums the loudest. Inside, a woman rocked her sleeping child, humming a melody she did not know she remembered. The baby's small hand rested on her chest, glowing faintly, each breath shimmering like gold dust in the air. Lachesis tilted her head, studying the glow. The thread runs through her heart, she murmured. Not beside her, through her. Atropos's expression was unreadable. That means she holds it. Clotho's eyes widened. No mortal holds their own thread. And yet, said Lachesis, she does. They stepped closer. The mother could not see them, yet she shivered, feeling the air change, the way silence thickens before a storm. The child stirred in her arms, opened her eyes, and for an instant, the Moirai saw themselves reflected in her gaze. Three shapes of light within endless black. She sees us, Clotho whispered. The baby's hand reached toward the air where their faces hovered. The thread that connected her to the loom glowed brighter, resonating like a chord struck by divine fingers. Around them, time seemed to hesitate. The fire froze mid-flicker. The wind forgot to move. Then the child laughed. A small, fragile sound that rippled across the cosmos. Lachesis gasped. Do you feel that? She altered the measure, said Atropos softly. The thread shifted. Clotho turned toward her sisters. Then she is no ordinary mortal. Her thread does not follow, it leads. For the first time, the Moirai felt uncertainty. The child's laughter had reached the loom above, and in its echo new stars began to appear, stars not woven by their hands. The tapestry had begun to weave itself. The mother laid the baby in her cradle, unaware that the fate of the cosmos slept beneath her roof. She whispered a name, Irene, and kissed her brow. The moment her lips touched the child, the sisters felt something pass between worlds. Peace but alive, a will older than fear. Atropos's grip tightened around her shears. Her name means peace, but peace can unmake as easily as it heals. Then perhaps that is her purpose, said Lachesis, to remind us what we forgot. What did we forget? Asked Clotho. The thread does not belong to us, said Lachesis. It never did. The sisters stood in silence, the soft hum of the loom echoing faintly from beyond the sky. For the first time in eternity, they felt the fragile beauty of choice and the terror of it. When they turned to leave, Clotho looked back once more. The child's thread glowed faintly above her crib, shimmering in colors that even gods could not name, pulsed like a heartbeat, like a promise. "She will sing to the loom," Clotho whispered, "and one day the loom will answer." As they vanished into starlight, the night wind carried the faint echo of the child's laughter, a melody of fate rewritten. In the silence beyond the stars, the loom trembled again. The Moirai had returned to their hall, expecting the familiar hum of order, the steady rhythm that had guided eternity since the first light. But as they entered, they found chaos that was not chaos. Movement without hands, music without a musician. The loom was weaving itself. Golden threads slid through the air as if alive, twisting and joining without guidance. Patterns bloomed and vanished in the span of a breath. Entire lives were woven and cut before the sisters could even see them. Time rushed and folded upon itself, each moment birthing another, the tapestry expanding beyond their sight. Clotho dropped her spindle. "Who spins?" she whispered. Lachesis raised her measuring rod, but the thread refused her touch. "It no longer listens to me." Atropos lifted her shears, meaning to still the motion, but the blades refused to close. "Nor to me." They watched as a single thread pulsed brighter than all the rest, the thread of the mortal child, Irene. It wound through the pattern like a melody that had become the song itself. Every strand it touched began to change. Colors deepened, destinies intertwined, endings softened. Even the stars in the tapestry shimmered with gentler light. "The child's will spreads through the loom," said Lachesis, awe and fear mingling in her voice. "She weaves without permission." "She does not weave," said Atropos. "She sings, and the loom listens." The fabric of the cosmos vibrated with sound. Each thread resonated with the next, a harmony vast enough to move the heavens. The Moirai had spent eternity guiding fate as architects of balance, but now they stood before something living, a tapestry aware of itself. Clotho stepped forward. "It remembers us." "How do you know?" asked Lachesis. "Because it stops when I breathe." The loom stilled, the threads hovering in place. Then slowly they began to move again, following the rhythm of Clotho's heartbeat. The sisters realized, with dawning clarity, that the loom was learning from them. It was learning to feel. Atropos lowered her shears. "We made it too well. It was never meant to only obey." "Perhaps this is what it was always meant to do," said Lachesis. "To finish what we began." Clotho placed her hand upon the loom's golden frame. It felt warm, alive, like the skin of a newborn universe. "Then what becomes of us, if fate no longer needs its weavers?" Before her sisters could answer, the threads shuddered, forming shapes within the weave, not of mortals but of gods. Their faces flickered like reflections on water. Zeus, Hera, Artemis, Hades, all bound, all moving within a single vast pattern. And through them flowed the same song, Irene's song. "She binds even the divine," Atropos said quietly. The child's thread sings through all creation. A deep sound echoed from the loom, a note low and eternal. The Moirai felt it reverberate through their bones. The tapestry was expanding, reaching into realms beyond the heavens, into dreams, into memory, into what would one day be called destiny's heart. Then suddenly the music stopped. The loom froze mid-motion, half-woven threads dangling like breaths caught between words. The air around them dimmed. In the center of the tapestry, the glowing thread of irony began to fray. "No," whispered Clotho. "She is still a child. The thread cannot bear its own song," said Lachesis. "It unravels itself." Atropos stepped forward, her voice steady but soft. "Then we must go to her. If she ends, the loom ends." The three sisters stood before their creation, the silent, pulsing weave of everything. For the first time in eternity, they were not its masters but its servants. Clotho gathered her spindle, Lachesis took her rod, and Atropos closed her shears. "The world sings through her," Clotho said. "We will listen." They stepped into the tapestry, vanishing into the golden threads that led downward, toward the mortal realm, toward the child, and toward the unraveling of fate itself. When the Moirai stepped into the weave, they felt the pulse of creation as no god ever had. The threads were not symbols anymore, they were lives. Each shimmer of color, each vibration beneath their feet, was a heartbeat, a thought, a whispered dream. The tapestry of fate was not above them now. Surrounded them, the sisters walked across light. Beneath their feet, stars flickered like dew. Voices whispered through the fabric. Mortal songs, divine prayers, and things older still. It was not the language of speech, but of meaning. Every sound was a story trying to be told. Clotho pressed her hand to the air. 1,000 threads touched her palm, warm, trembling, alive. "They feel pain," she whispered. "Every choice burns." Lachesis lifted her rod, but it no longer measured distance. It measured memory. As she turned it, she saw reflections ripple in the threads. Lovers parting, children laughing, kingdoms rising and falling like waves. "All of them think they are alone," she said softly, "and yet they are bound to each other, to us." Atropos followed in silence, her shears gleaming at her side. Each step she took, the threads parted slightly, not in fear, but in reverence. For the one who ends things is also the one who makes room for what must begin. Then, from the center of the weave, they saw her. Irony, no longer a child, but not yet grown. She stood upon a spiral of golden strands that flowed outward like the petals of a flower. Her hands glowed with woven light, and her eyes reflected the movement of galaxies. She was singing not aloud, but through every fiber of existence. Her song guided the loom's motion, giving new shape to what once was static. Clotho stepped forward. "Child," she said, her voice trembling, "you must rest. The loom will break beneath so much will." Irony turned. Her voice was soft, but it carried through every realm. "The loom is not breaking. It is waking." Lachesis looked at her thread, glowing brighter than all others. "You cannot bear this alone." "I am not alone," said Irene. "Every thread sings with me. even yours. The sisters exchanged glances. For the first time, they felt the weight of their own existence within the tapestry. Threads of gold and silver wove behind them, each line a reflection of their deeds, their choices, their doubts. Clotho reached to touch her own thread. It pulsed, showing her the moments she had spun too quickly, the lives she had rushed to create without care. Lachesis saw the patterns she had measured too narrowly, and Atropos saw the endings she had cut too soon. Tears fell from their eyes and vanished into the weave, becoming tiny stars. Irene smiled gently. The loom remembers all things, but it also forgives. Then the tapestry shifted. The threads beneath the sisters began to move on their own, carrying them toward the center, toward the great pattern. Around them, colors danced in spirals of light, threads crossing and merging, breaking and reforming, the music swelling like the tide. At the heart of it, the sisters saw a shape forming, a circle made of unending light. Within it lay no hierarchy, no beginning, no end, only balance. Clotho gasped. It remakes itself in our image. No, said Lachesis. It remakes us in its. The circle pulsed once, bright, then still. Irene looked up. You were never meant to rule fate. You were meant to teach it. Atropos lowered her shears. And now, said Irene, you must learn to live within it. The light consumed them, gentle, endless, kind. When it faded, the sisters found themselves standing not in the halls of gods, but in a world of dawn and shadow. The threads hung in the sky above them like constellations, humming softly, patient and alive. Clotho felt the earth beneath her feet and smiled faintly. So this is what it feels like. To be mortal, Lachesis whispered. Atropos gazed at the horizon. To be free. The loom above them continued to hum, no longer their instrument, but their mirror. Dawn broke over the mortal world, soft, unhurried, breathing in gold. The Moirai stood upon the edge of a meadow where mist gathered like memory. Their divine glow had dimmed, their eternal garments now woven of simple cloth. They were not goddesses here. They were wanderers, and for the first time the world felt vast. Clotho bent to touch the dew upon a blade of grass. It sings, she whispered. Every drop hums with the thread of its moment. Lachesis smiled faintly. Perhaps the loom did not banish us. Perhaps it let us live. Atropos said nothing. She gazed toward a nearby village, where smoke rose gently from hearths and voices drifted on the wind. Laughter, argument, song. All the small sounds of mortality that the gods never truly heard. They walked among them unnoticed. Mortals saw only travelers. 3 quiet women moving through the world with eyes that seemed to remember too much. The sisters felt the pulse of lives all around. Each heartbeat a thread. Each choice a shimmer in the unseen weave above. And yet no thread bowed to them anymore. They simply moved, free and alive. Clotho found joy in beginnings. She knelt beside a river where children played, their hands shaping boats from reeds. Each small vessel sailed forward, carried by the same current she once commanded from the stars. She smiled. They make new worlds without knowing. Lachesis learned patience. She spent her days among the old, listening to their stories. Every wrinkle, every memory was a mark of time measured, not by her rod, but by the heart's endurance. They measure themselves, she whispered one evening, not in length, but in love. And Atropos, the cutter of threads, discovered mercy. She sat beside the sick and the weary, holding their hands through the quiet hours. No longer did she end them. She simply stayed, learning that endings are not cruel when they are shared. One night, as the stars rose, the three sisters gathered upon a hill. The constellations above flickered faintly, shifting as though they listened. In their patterns they could still see the great loom far beyond reach, no longer a tool but a mirror of the mortal world. Lachesis looked upward. "Do you ever miss it? The weaving?" Clotho asked. "Sometimes, but I have learned that the world weaves itself well enough." Atropos gazed at the horizon. "And do you not see it? Every light above is a thread still moving. Every shadow a choice unfolding. We never lost our work. We simply stepped inside it." They sat together in silence, watching a single shooting star trace across the night. The mark of a thread newly spun, a life just beginning. It fell not toward the earth, but toward the space between them, glowing brighter until it hovered before their eyes. It was Irene, not the child, not the goddess, but the song itself, reborn as light. Her voice was the wind through the grass, the breath between words. "You've learned," she said gently. "You understand now." Clotho bowed her head. "We understand that the loom lives because they live." "And because you do," Irene replied. "You were never apart from it. You were its heart." The sisters felt warmth flood through them, not divine, but human. The kind that comes from being seen, from being part of the world instead of above it. Lachesis looked to her sisters. "If the world weaves itself, what becomes of us now?" Irene smiled. "You keep walking." The light drifted upward, scattering into starlight. The constellations rearranged once more, forming three new shapes in the sky: the spinner, the measurer, and the keeper of the rest. Clotho breathed deeply. "It honors us." "At last," said Atropos. "We honor it." The night deepened around them, calm and endless. Mortals dreamed nearby, dreams of love, of loss, of gods who once watched and now walked beside them. The sisters felt those dreams tug at the sky, pulling soft new threads across the dark. And for the first time the Moirai slept, not in death, not in duty, but in peace. Morning rose on a world without weavers. The sky shimmered with gentle light, neither divine nor mortal, but something between. A peace that came when all things finally found their rhythm. The Moirai awoke in a field of golden grass, dew clinging to their hands like memory. For the first time, they did not hear the hum of the loom, and yet they did not miss it. Clotho sat up and smiled. "It is quiet. It is alive," said Lachesis. "Every silence breathes now." Atropos opened her hand and found, resting upon her palm, a single thread of light. It pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat, infinite and tender. "It never ended," she whispered. "The loom only moved inside us." They rose together, gazing toward the horizon. The constellations that once mirrored their design now drifted freely, rearranging themselves with each dawn. The universe no longer obeyed the rhythm of fate. It danced to its own gentle pulse. As they walked through the meadow, they saw the lives they had once woven, now unfolding without guidance. A young mother sang to her child beside a river. Two lovers met beneath an old tree and promised nothing, yet meant everything. An old man smiled as the wind touched his face, grateful simply to feel it. Every breath, every moment, was its own masterpiece. Lachesis placed her hand over her heart. They do not need us anymore. Clotho looked up. No, but they remember us, in the way they live, in the way they forgive. Atropos closed her eyes, listening to the wind. Then we are not gone. We are within the pattern itself. From the sky above, a familiar glow descended, soft, golden, and filled with harmony. It was not a voice, not a vision, but the presence of something eternal. Irene, the song reborn, the melody that had once taught the loom to feel. You've done what no god ever dared, the light said gently. You let go. Clotho knelt. We only followed what was already written. No, Irene whispered. You rewrote it. The wind stirred. All around them, threads of invisible light lifted from the earth, weaving through air and sky and water. The sisters realized they could see the entire world's pattern, not as rulers, but as part of its breath. Every motion, every stillness, every death and rebirth. It all flowed through the same thread. Lachesis wept softly. It's beautiful. Irene's voice echoed, soft as the turning of a page. It always was. You simply forgot to look. The sisters stood hand in hand as the light around them grew. Clotho's golden spindle shimmered one last time and vanished. Lachesis's rod dissolved into dust. Atropos's shears melted into light. None were lost, they became the sky itself. The three looked at one another, their forms softening, blending into the morning air. They felt no fear, only understanding. The loom was no longer an object, it was the world. Every soul, every dream, every heartbeat was part of it. The Moirai had not ended their work. They had become it. Clotho whispered, Then let the world spin without our hands. Lachesis added, Let every thread measure itself. And Atropos smiled. Let all endings lead home. Their forms shimmered, turning to mist, then to light, then to memory. The field glowed where they had stood, and from that place, wildflowers began to bloom, each one a different color, each petal a reflection of a life yet to come. Above, the constellations took shape once more, not as gods nor as weavers, but as the pattern of peace itself. The stars no longer spelled destiny. They whispered it. Somewhere, beyond the edge of sound, the universe exhaled. The great thread, endless, nameless, and kind, stretched outward across all that is, was, and will be. It did not seek control. It sought harmony, and in that harmony everything lived. Thank you for listening to Sleep with Myth.